各位早晨，
Good morning, everyone.
我開始講。
I'll start.
我哋疫情開始咗之後，係停咗幾個月嘅時間，係冇崇拜。
And when the pandemic started, we have stopped worshiping for several months.
之後弟兄姊妹翻出嚟，
Afterward, brothers and sisters came back to the church.
我好肯定一樣嘢，就係肯定你翻嚟之前咧，未重翻教會之前咧，你內心裏邊咧係再次反省一下，你參加崇拜嘅動機係點樣？
I believe that indeed that before you came back, you did research and reflect upon yourself. Say, what's the reason why you come to the church to worship?
肯定一樣嘢，你會覺得咧，我而家再翻去聚會咧，唔係好似以前咁樣循例咁樣翻去。
It is for certain that when you came back, you didn't came back as what you did before as a habit or ritual or
因為做一
routine.
樣嘢做得重複再重複嘅時候咧，好容易係麻木咗。
Because once we do something repeatedly, time and after time, we become desensitized.
而我哋都知道咧，我哋而家循例去做啲嘢嘅時候係冇賞賜嘅。
And also we also know that when we do something just our habit, we will not receive a reward.
我相信我哋了解咗呢樣嘢。
I believe we understand this.
我今日再希望咧，係藉咁嘅機會咧，幫助大家進一步嚟把握我哋點解翻嚟教會裏邊聚會去敬拜嘅目的同埋動機。
And today I hope that I'll be able to help you to further grasp the reason why we come back to worship and to the meeting.
我以往所講到係我哋去親近神，去敬拜佢，去同佢相遇。
And I mentioned before that we came here to meet God and to have an encounter with Him.
今日我所解釋嘅就係咧，當我哋進到神嘅殿裏邊嘅時候，其實係有另外嘅益處喺裏邊。
And what I want to explain to you today is that when we come into the house of His temple, the house of the Lord, there are other benefits that we
喺
can
詩經
gain.
第73篇第16節裏邊所講到咧，神俾我哋知道咧，我哋進到神嘅殿嘅裏邊咧，係可以揾到答案。
In Psalms 73 and verse 16 onward, it tells us when we come into the temple of the Lord, we can find our answer.
呢個詩人裏邊講到咧，佢有啲人真係唔明白點解。
The psalmist here said that there's something he did not understand.
佢冇辦法嘅時候，佢進到神嘅殿裏邊咧，嚟到思想呢樣嘢嘅時候，佢嚟到了解到係乜嘢所有嘅結局係點樣。
And when he came here to his own, there's nothing else he can do to find out that answer. He came to the Lord, and finally there he found his answer.
所以今日其中一樣嘢所講嘅就係，我哋進到神嘅殿裏邊，其中一樣嘢就係需要咧係去揾呢個答案。
And we'll mention today that something there in your life that you need to find an answer for.
喺呢一個聖經裏面講到，撒母耳嘅媽媽哈拿就係咁樣樣啦。
And in the Bible, it gives an example of Hannah, Samuel's mother,
佢係冇生育，
that she did not have a child.
而且你俾佢個對頭啊，因為嗰個老公咧娶咗兩個老婆，所以俾個另外一個老婆咧嚟嘲笑佢啊，欺負佢。
And that her enemy, one of her husband's wife, was teasing her about this.
所以激到佢咧，連食飯都冇心機去食。
And to the point where she doesn't have the mood to eat.
當佢敬拜有一日嘅時候，佢到神嘅面前，去到神嘅殿裏邊傾心吐意嚟到懇求神。
And one day at the time of worship, she came before God and asked God.
撒母耳記上第1章第17節裏邊所講到咧，原來神咧就藉着祭司咧俾佢呢個答案。
And in the First Samuel, in chapter 1, through the priest, God gave her an answer.
本來冇答案又唔知會點嘅，係諗住一世都係要蒙受呢個冤屈嘅。
And the such should be like that for their whole life, and they should have no answer for it.
假如佢留喺屋企裏邊嘅話，
If she stayed home,
佢肯定唔會得到呢個答案。
it's certain that she will not receive an answer.
肯定咧，神咧唔會喺嗰時候咧應許佢俾一個兒子俾佢。
And certainly God will not grant her a son.
但係當佢進到殿嘅時候，原來佢揾到呢個答案。
But when she came to the temple, she found her answer.
所以我哋要明白到咧，原來我哋進到神嘅殿同埋冇進神嘅殿係有分別嘅。
And so we need to know to come to the temple or the house of the Lord or not to come. There's apparent difference.
今日我要另外解釋呢個進到神嘅殿裏邊敬拜佢嘅另外一個動機。
And I want to mention about explain about the motive, and another motive to come to the house of the Lord to worship Him.
除咗我哋去親近神之外，
Other than just to draw closer to God,
我哋需要有一個目標同埋動向喺裏邊。
and we need to have a direction and also a goal.
唔單止為咗自己私人嘅事情帶到神嘅面前，
Not only that we bring to God our personal things,
嗱，但係我呢個世代，我哋呢個環境裏邊嚟到去帶佢哋進到神面前嚟到找答案。
we also lead this world or our surroundings or circumstances to God to find an answer for them.
就係因為我哋住喺呢一個危急嘅世代嘅時間，
Because we are living in a time of crisis.
我哋需要進到神嘅面前嚟為呢個世代嚟到找呢個答案。
And this is the reason why we need to come before God and find an answer from God
去明
for
白
this
神嘅
world
旨意，
and to find God's will
同埋做呢個世代裏邊嗰個守望者。
and to be the watchman for this generation.
由於我哋而家世界所遭遇嘅危難嘅時候，
As the world fall into crisis,
係驅使到我哋進到神嘅殿裏邊嚟尋求神嘅心
it
意。
drives us to come to God and to seek God's will.
所以今日所講嘅題目就係做神一個冷靜嘅代表。
So the theme for today's message is be a calm voice representing God.
我哋禱告，
Let's pray.
我哋感謝你俾我哋咁嘅機會嚟去服侍你，
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
願意你聽我哋嘅懇求，
May you listen to our call
因
to
為我
you,
哋冇答案，
because we have no answer
我哋唔
ourselves.
知道呢個世代要經歷乜嘢嘢，
We don't know what this world or this generation needs to
但係懇
experience.
求主你真係喺我哋嘅心裏邊嚟到俾我哋明白知道，
But may you allow us to understand
嚟到真係響當中嚟到響呢個破口裏邊嚟到去保護呢一個城市。
and to stand in the gap and to protecting this city.
我哋懇求主你繼續嚟到恩待我哋。
And may you continue to give us grace.
當我哋揾到答案嘅時候，叫呢個福氣都臨到呢個世代。
And then we receive an answer that this world will be blessed.
我哋咁樣禱告，奉主耶穌基督名求，
We pray all this in Jesus' name.
阿門。
Amen.
未講到點樣去做一個神嘅冷靜嘅代言人之前，
Before tell you how to become a calm voice representing
第
God,
一樣我哋要明白就係絕境係俾人一個轉機去尋求神。
one thing that we need to understand is that desperation brings us to the point where we go and find God.
有一樣好特別嘅就係，當一個人平日未必係相信神，但係當有危急嘅關頭嚟唔到嘅時候，突然間佢會想起有位神要求告佢。
It's a very special case when someone may never think about God, yet at a time of crisis and they remember.
無論個人點樣否認神，或者佢唔相信有神，但喺急難嘅當中裏邊咧，好容易咧佢想起啦，有一個可能個能力比我大嘅係可以救我嘅。
Even for those who do not believe or those who reject God, and yet at a time of crisis, very easy for them to think that there might be someone greater than I that can help.
約拿逃避神嘅旨意，走到他施城。
And Jonah, he fled the calling of God.
佢個神咧就使到海裏邊有大風浪，
And God caused there's a storm in the middle of the sea,
嗰船幾乎會沉嘅。
and the ship is about to sink.
咁其實唔係單止係對付約拿，亦都對付整個船嘅人。
That just did not affect only Jonah, but everyone on board.
嗰啲水手咧，其實係啲外邦人嚟嘅。
And all the people the sailors there were actually
當約
Gentiles.
拿喺個船底裏邊係仲係沉睡嘅時候，佢哋咧就個個喺度求神啦。
And while Jonah was sleeping, in the ship, the rest of them were praying to God.
好特別嘅喎。
It's a very unique case.
平日佢哋冇危險、冇生命危險嘅時候，佢哋冇想到有神嘅。但係當有生命危險嘅時候，佢哋唔單止要求神，佢抄醒約拿，叫佢你都起嚟求告神啦。
And when they in a normal day, when they're not facing life and death or in crisis, they will not call out to God. But yet at this time, they call out to God and even call Jonah to come and pray with them.
我哋喺教會嘅時間有一個堂委會嘅等於而家執事李超元弟兄。
And a steering committee member when we bring the church, Daniel Lee.
佢個媽媽，我未認識佢之前，我認識佢媽媽。佢媽媽咧，我哋去多倫多探佢嘅時候，香港多倫多嘅時候咧，佢講到佢點樣信耶穌。
And at the time when we went to visit them, we met his mother, and she related to us how she became a believer.
佢話佢打仗嘅時間咧係走難。
And she was fleeing in war at that time.
而嗰時候冇糧食。
And they were without food.
喺佢絕望嘅時候咧，佢同神講：佢話天啊，嗱佢唔知嗰個主耶穌唔知聖喎。佢天啊救我啦！如果你救到我，我相信你。
At that time, that in desperation, she called out that, "Heaven, if you help me, then I'll believe in you." At that time, she didn't know there was Jesus.
神咧係聽佢嘅禱告咧，係搭救咗佢。
And at the end, God listened to her prayer and saved her.
然後之後佢信耶穌，佢聽到福音嘅時候咧，信耶穌，佢就知道咧，原來急難裏邊佢所求告嘅就係呢個創造主。
And after she became a believer and she heard the message, she knew that the one she called out to at the time was this God.
原來喺危機嘅當中嘅時間咧，人係好容易咧係想翻起有神。
So in a time of crisis, it's very easy for man to remember God.
大約喺20多年之前咧，我讀到一篇，我相信係中信月刊裏邊嘅一個咁嘅見證。
About 20-some years ago, I read in a magazine about this article.
講到一個 空軍嘅機師。
There is a Air Force pilot.
佢話佢喺空中裏邊嚟到去遇見神。
And he had an encounter with God in the air.
點解咧？
Why?
就因為佢嘅飛機喺空中裏突然間係失咗控制。
And because the fighter that he was piloting suddenly have a malfunction.
喺好高嘅高空裏邊。
That's in the sky.
突然間咧就係向底即係 lost altitude 就係跌咗好低落去。
And suddenly it lost altitude and start to fall.
係響真係要撞之前。
And before he crashes.
咁佢就突然間咧，佢諗起要求神，佢話神啊，你救我。
And suddenly he called out to God, and God help me.
求一個佢唔認識嘅神。
To call out to a God he does not know.
神救咗佢，佢心裏信咗主。
And God saved him, and later he became a Christian.
我哋而家其實就係生活喺一個危機嘅當中。
And right now we're living in a time of crisis.
危機係需要我哋嚟到去求問神，尋求神嘅答案。
And at this time we need to ask God for the answer.
我今日就要解釋下呢個先知以賽亞，就喺呢一個惡劣嘅環境裏邊係孕育出嚟咧，成為一個進到神裏邊嘅殿尋求神嘅一個人。
And today I want to explain to you about the prophet Isaiah, that he was led in a time of turbulent time to become a person who go seek after God in his temple.
而使到我哋可以喺我哋同一個危難嘅日子裏邊，可以學習點樣去尋求神。
And to teach us the lesson how we can seek after God for an answer in time of crisis.
以賽亞興起嘅時候，喺呢個以賽亞第6章係講到。
And for the rise of Isaiah, it recorded in Isaiah chapter 6.
講到咧，當呢個烏西亞王要死嗰年咧，佢進到神嘅殿裏邊去尋求神嘅心意。
At the year where the king Uzziah died, he went into the temple to seek God's will.
我要解釋下呢個烏西亞王嗰個背景先。
So we first look at the background of the king Uzziah.
烏西亞王係一個好英明嘅君主嚟嘅。
Uzziah was a wise king.
喺呢一個歷代志下第26章呢裏邊講到。
And Second Chronicle, it is recorded in Second Chronicle chapter 26 about him.
佢好細個16歲做皇帝咧，佢就開始尋求神，亦都對神嘅幫助咧，係凡事亨通。
And he became king at the age of 16, and he seeked after God, and God helped him, and everything for him was smooth.
然後佢征服咗一啲嘅 國家，所以咧國家好強盛嘅。
And he conquered many other nations, so his nation was strong and powerful.
第9節講到咧，佢係好愛農業。
And verse 9 said that he loved the soil.
所以咧，由於咁嘅緣故咧，佢就好多嘅建設係關於農作嘅建設。
And for that reason, he had many he set up many things for agriculture.
所以因為咁嘅緣故，個國家咧係豐收，而且咧百姓係安居樂業嘅。
And for that reason, they have a lot of food to eat, and all the citizens lives in harmony.
第11節講到咧，佢咧係加強個國防咧，係手下好多能征慣戰嘅一個軍隊。
And also that he have increased the national defense, and also have an army that is able to battle and conquer.
15節講到咧，佢關於佢嚟到發明一啲防禦嘅武器。
And also in verse 15, it said that they invented a lot of weapons for defense.
所以咧又好農作，又好嘅軍事，所以咧佢係好似如虎添翼咧，國家好強盛嘅。
And because they have a good production in the country, and also a good defense, so that's for that reason his country was strong and
佢做咗
powerful.
皇帝有52年咁多。
And he reigned as the king for 52
所以由於
years.
咁嘅緣故咧，52年一個咁增強嗰個國家嘅根源啊，或者係豐衣足食啊之類嘅，同埋國家嘅強壯咧，所以咧呢個猶太嗰時候咧係一個強嘅國。
And for 52 years, because of their work in agriculture and also in defense, the nation of Judah was a very powerful nation.
烏西亞成為一個民族裏邊嘅大英雄。
And the king Uzziah became a people's hero.
但係喺16節講到，
But in verse 16,
當佢年老嘅時候，佢就開始脾氣古怪咗啦，做啲邪僻嘅事。
And at the year when he got old, he started to do improper things.
然後佢心高氣傲咧，走到神嘅殿裏邊咧，要獻祭同埋燒香，係觸怒咗神嘅。
And because of his pride, he wanted to offer incense in the temple of God, and caused the God to he offended God because of that.
你會明白，原來喺舊約裏邊咧，凡人唔可以自己走去獻祭嘅，乃係需要經過中保，就係呢一個祭司去咁樣做嘅。
And you need to know that in Old Testament that ordinary people cannot go and offer incense to God. You need to go through a mediator, which the priest, to offer incense to God, offering to God.
呢個烏西亞就話：我唔需要啲祭司，我可以自己上去咁做，所以佢就越咗位咧，係做一啲神唔準佢做嘅事。
And Uzziah decided, I don't need these priests, and I can offer the incense myself. So he overstepped himself.
有80位嘅祭司咧，就係走出嚟咧，係阻止佢。
And there was 80 priests who came and tried to stop him.
咁因為咁緣故，佢惱羞成怒咧，就係發嬲。
And the king became angry because of that.
第19節講到咧，當啲祭司阻止佢嘅時候咧，佢發嬲，而佢哋趕佢出去，佢突然間見得到佢個頭上高咧，就係出咗啲大麻風。
And suddenly the 80 priests saw that there was leprosy on his forehead, the king's forehead.
因為神係刑罰佢咧，將大麻風加咗上佢身上高。
And because what he did, God punished him, so he became leprous.
一個有大麻風嘅人唔能夠進神嘅殿裏邊嘅。
For one who is unclean, who is leprous, cannot enter the temple of God.
由嗰日開始，
From that day onward,
呢個烏西亞王咧係冇能夠再次打理呢個朝政。
he was not able to continue to govern.
然後佢讓佢兒子咧呢個約旦咧係參政嘅。
And his son Jotham had to take over and govern in his place.
當然國家嘅大事唔再一樣。
And of course, everything changed.
一落千丈。
That going into a quick decline.
然後呢個撒迦利亞書咧講到第14章咧，仲有一樣嘢就係烏西亞死一年咧，係原來咧猶太裏邊一個大嘅地震。
Also recorded in Zechariah chapter 14, it mentioned in the year where King Uzziah died, there was a great earthquake.
我哋要明白呢個咁嘅背景，就係原來咧呢個以賽亞進呢個殿嘅時候咧，唔單止呢個烏西亞咧係已經係唔可以做王，即係唔可以處理朝政，而且喺嗰年裏邊咧係有個大地震。
And so we need to understand that the background was that at the time when Isaiah entered the temple to seek after God, that not only Uzziah was not able to govern, but there was a great earthquake.
猶大個國咧係損毀到係好嚴重嘅。
And great damage was caused to the nation of Judah.
好多嘅建築物倒塌咗。
Many of the buildings collapsed.
如果你知道大地震係點樣，好似最近譬如海地有幾次嘅大地震啦，呢最近10幾年，好多嘅建築物係倒塌。
And if you understand the earthquake, and as you may have seen in Haiti, there's several earthquakes. A lot of buildings collapsed.
國家裏邊嘅建設係嘅根源咧係倒閉咗嘅。
And a lot of infrastructure of the country are in ruins.
呢個四處都係呢個隨活行敗瓦，滿目瘡痍。
And all what you see just desolation.
原來呢個大地震係敲響咗呢個呢個猶大國嘅敗落嘅警鐘。
And this is sound alarm for the decline of the nation of Judah.
所以唔單止係烏西亞王呢個民族英雄咧係死。
Not only that, this people's hero, King Uzziah, come to his story's end.
以賽亞去到神嘅殿裏邊，因為睇到呢一個整個國家係到咁衰敗嘅地步。
And Isaiah came to the temple to seek after God because he saw the decline of the nation.
真係好似好無奈、無助咁樣。
And he was helpless.
一個關心國家嘅青年人。
For a young person who is concerned about his nation.
帶住一個沉重嘅心情去到神嘅殿裏邊求問神啊，神啊，點解會有咁嘅事情發生咧？
He seek and come after God and ask God, why does this happen with a heavy heart?
點解咁好地一個咁好嘅民族英雄咁嘅大皇帝，有咁嘅悲劇嘅收場咧？
And why does this hero of the nation have such a sad ending?
點解有呢個咁嘅大地震損毀呢個國家咧？
And why is there an earthquake that caused damage to this country?
唔單止係咁樣，因為呢啲咁嘅緣故咧，有外邊嘅國家係會嚟侵略佢哋添嘅。
Not only that, other surrounding country would come and invade them.
所以喺呢個國家裏面多事之秋嘅時間，生死存亡之際，呢個以賽亞係挺身走出嚟。
And it's this time of trouble, a time of trouble, and a time of life and death that Isaiah came to the temple.
喺地上佢揾唔到答案
because he found no answer on the earth.
所以唯一驅使佢嘅就係進到神嘅殿裏邊揾呢個答案。
So the only way that he come, the last resource that he has is to come to God and ask for an answer.
而我相信佢估都估唔到咧，原來當佢進到神嘅殿裏邊，居然咧神咧係響異象顯現俾佢見到。
I believe he did not expect that God will reveal himself to him in a vision.
既然你想揾答案嘅時候，我就呼召你做呢個民族裏邊嘅先知。
And God seemed God said that since you asked for an answer, then I will call you to be a prophet.
俾佢一個新嘅使命，成為呢個守望人。
And to give you a new mission to become the watchman.
同埋為着神嘅緣故咧，係代表神去講說話。
And for God's sake to represent God.
雖然響以賽亞嗰個心裏邊，呢個地上嗰個皇位係空置咗。
Even though in the mind of Isaiah that the throne is vacant on this earth.
今日佢睇到個答案就係原來響天上高神嘅響座位寶座嘅皇位裏邊係坐喺寶座上。
Yet on that day he knows that God is still sitting on his throne.
佢明白到雖然國家係敗落，
He understood even though the nation's in decline.
但係佢而家知道點解咧？原來因為係以色列人咧係忘記咗神，離棄咗神。
And now he found the reason is that the people of Israel have forgotten about God.
而呢所有嘅安排啊，所有嘅都係神嘅命定嘅。
And all these arrangements, what happened is ordained by God.
唔單止咁樣，第6章第10節到第13節入邊，佢求問神話，到幾時先至會完結咧？
Not only that, he asked God in Isaiah chapter 6 verse 10, say, for how long?
然後佢明白到神俾佢講，俾佢知道就係咧呢個敗落嘅事咧係未有完結嘅。
And at that time, God revealed to him, "It's not yet finished."
直至到咧所有人咧係被搬到去離開佢嘅遠方裏邊甚至乎咧所剩下地土咧好多冇人有居住。
And that the condition will continue to decline until all the cities are lying in ruins and without inhabitant.
佢明白到原來唔係神失咗控制。
He understood that it is not God lost control.
係所有嘅都係神嘅命定咗嘅。
That all these things happen because God ordained it.
然後喺今趟佢進到神嘅殿裏邊呢件咁嘅過程咧，係奠定咗佢今後成為時代裏邊守望者嘅身份。
And this time, and because of this event, it established him as the watchman of his generation.
27年之後
Verse 27. 27 years later.
呢件事見到嗰個佢點樣使用佢嘅身份嗰個現象係點樣？就係當希西家王作王嘅時候。
And we will see how he would fulfill his position of watchman in the time of Hezekiah.
我睇見神點樣使用佢。
We see how God used him.
27年之後，國家已經係有窮，又越嚟越嚴重嘅敗落。
And 27 years later, that the nation of Judah had reached its lowest point, and they were poor.
比起27年呢個烏西亞王嗰個全盛期咧，係今非昔比嘅。
And is incomparable to time of King Uzziah.
有亞述各國嘅軍隊18萬嘅大軍咧，係大軍壓境。
And the king of Assyria, he sent his army about 180 strong, 180,000 strong, came and seized the city.
佢已經失晒所有嘅城市噶啦，係直翻呢個耶路撒冷。
And that all the other cities has fallen except Jerusalem.
然後佢啲18萬大軍圍住佢個城嘅時候，佢哋係冇糧食嘅。
And when they were under siege by this 180,000 strong army, that they are without food.
以賽亞書第36章裏邊講到咧，呢個亞述嘅將軍咧喺城外裏邊罵戰嘅時候。
That in the book of Isaiah chapter 36, that when they were having their verbal war outside the city.
然後第8節講到佢點樣嘲笑佢哋咧？
In verse 6, he mentioned how they were teasing them.
佢話：就算我俾2000嘅馬俾你哋，你哋都唔夠個騎兵上去，嚟到騎上去同我哋打仗。
And he said, even if I give you 2,000 horses, that you could not put riders on them.
你話以色列人都唔夠，點同呢18萬嘅軍隊打咧？
And because they were not able to fight against 180,000.
唔單止佢係咁樣再嘲笑佢哋話咧，佢哋絕糧到個地步咧，係自己係食緊佢哋自己嘅屎同埋飲緊自己嘅尿。
And also saying that you will eat your own excrements and also your own drink your own urine.
你話幾咁可憐猶太國？
And how pitiful is that nation right now?
佢哋嘅敗落到地步咧，係冇人信得過嘅。
And they declined to a point that is unbelievable.
佢哋軟弱到不堪，一定係輸嘅。
And they were so fragile that they will lose for sure.
就喺呢個生死存亡之間
And at this moment,
大難臨頭嘅時候，
and when calamity fall upon them,
因為佢就嚟會亡國嘅一剎那。
at a time where the nation will fall.
第37章第1節裏邊所講咧，呢個希西家王咧，聽見呢個亞述王嘅辱罵嘅時候咧，就撕裂個衣服咧，係披上呢個麻布進入神嘅殿去求神憐憫佢。
And in chapter 37, verse 10, that Hezekiah tore his clothes and put in sackcloth and came and seek after God.
然後突然間佢想起一樣嘢，
And suddenly he remembered one thing.
就係佢諗起咧27年之前。呢一個有個年青人，當時嘅年青人就以賽亞進到神嘅殿，喺呢個咁危機嘅當中咧，去求問神。
And to remember 27 years ago, that's you, Isaiah, that he entered the temple to seek after God.
然後佢就呢個希西家就咁啦，不如咧我叫個家宰啊、書記啊、祭司長啊嚟到咧去見一見去以賽亞，去睇佢嚟到去求佢幫助。
And the king said, well, let's ask all the administrators and everyone and come to go to Isaiah and ask him to seek after God.
求佢喺咁困難嘅日子裏邊咧，去進到神嘅殿咧，嚟到去咧為百姓咧係揚聲嚟到禱告嘅。
And at this time of trouble, that he will represent the people of Judah and call out to God in the temple.
第一點，呢個係
That's the first point.
第二點，
Second point,
冷靜嘅安慰安撫。
and is a calm, a calm response.
當佢哋呢個希西家王派人去對以賽亞講説話嘅時候，
And when Hezekiah sent his people to talk to Isaiah,
以賽亞第六節裏邊咧有個回覆就係咁啊，佢話耶和華主説：你聽見亞述王嘅褻瀆我嘅話，你哋唔需要怕。
and the response from Isaiah is that you do not be afraid of what you heard.
佢叫你唔好怕。
He told them not to be afraid.
你話有冇搞錯啊？
You may say, well, seriously.
喺呢個咁燃眉之急裏邊，大難臨頭，城裏邊係絕糧。
And at the time when they have no food and they are about to be destroyed,
而且我哋咧係俾呢個俾圍困嘅時候，
and they are under siege,
呢個國家要亡國噶啦。
and a nation is about to fall.
你話點解唔去怕？
And why shouldn't they be afraid?
今日我要指出就係呢樣嘢，就係我哋需要學習嘅就係以賽亞居然係響好鎮靜、好冷靜嘅情況下係安撫佢哋。
And one thing we need to learn that even though under all these circumstances, that Isaiah was able to pacify the people who came to him.
呢個就係一個同神有密切關係嘅人同埋其他嘅人嘅分別。
And there's a difference between one who is intimate with God and those who are not.
以賽亞佢肯定知道所有嘅事都有神嘅命定嘅。
For certainly Isaiah knew that all these was ordained by
因為
God.
27年之前佢進到神嘅殿裏邊咧，神咧係俾佢見得到，
That God have shown him already 27 years ago in the temple.
佢開始可以安心又信靠神、依賴神。
And so he is able to rely upon God, trust and rely upon God with
所以
a
當
peaceful
有
mind.
咁嘅危機嚟到嘅時候，佢係從容不迫咁樣嚟到去做一個代表神，做一個冷靜嘅聲音。
And for that reason, he's unraveled at this time of crisis and we're able to become a calm voice before the
當
people.
所有嘅人國家裏邊嘅人都係人心惶惶嘅時候，
When everyone was filled with anxiety,
佢係唯一一個好鎮靜、好冷靜嘅，
he alone is calm
係去安撫佢哋，
and he even pacifies them
佢叫佢哋唔好怕。
to tell them, do not be afraid.
然後第7節裏邊所講到咧嘅話咧，我必驚動佢嘅心啊，就係嗰個亞述王嘅心咧。佢聽到風聲嘅時候就歸回佢本國，我必使他在那裏倒在刀下。
And in verse 7 it said, listen, when he hear a certain report, I will make him want to return to his own country, and there I will have him cut down with the sword.
我估啲人聽到以賽亞所俾嘅答案時候，佢哋歡喜到唔可以信得過，唔敢相信。
I believe that people when they heard what Isaiah has said, they must be overjoyed.
冇人可以咁樣做到呢樣嘢，係得以賽亞，因為佢見過神嘅緣故，佢可以嚟到去安撫佢哋。
And no one else can do the thing that Isaiah just did because he's the only one who have seen God.
所以呢個功夫好重要嘅，
For that reason, it's very important lessons for us.
我哋要學習呢一樣嘢，
We need to learn this.
就係當我哋去尋求到神嘅時候，知道神響佢掌權嘅時候，我哋可以好安心嚟到去面臨我哋嘅危機。
And that when we seek after God and know that God is still in control, then we can trust him with a peaceful mind.
然後以賽亞講俾佢聽咧，個神話其實咧錫安嘅處女嚟藐視你，恥笑你，向你搖頭，因為第23節佢話你辱罵誰，褻瀆誰，揚聲起嚟， 高舉眼目攻擊係誰咧？係攻擊以色列嘅聖者。
The peace of mind in time of trouble. And also in the verse 22, it says, the virgin, the daughter of Zion, had despised you, laughed you to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem has shaken her head behind your back. Whom have you reproached and blasphemed? And against whom have you raised your voice and lift up your eyes on high against the Holy One of Israel?
呢個神指責呢一個亞述王。
And this is the rebuke of God towards the king of
因為
Assyria.
26節講到咧，佢話你豈冇聽到我與祖先留所講嘅、所做嘅，係古時所立嘅，係藉着你係使到堅固嘅城係荒廢，變為亂堆。
And also in verse 26, it says that, have you not heard? Long ago I ordained it. In days of old I planned it. Now I have brought it to pass that you have turned fortified cities into piles of stone.
你坐下，你起嚟，你進去，你向我發烈怒，我都知道。
In verse 28, but I know where you are and when you come and go and how you rage against me.
29節最後講啦，我要將呢勾在你嘅鼻子裏邊，把嚼環放在你口裏邊，使到你從原路回去。
And then also verse 29 is that I will put a hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I will make you return by the way you came.
35節佢話：我為我自己緣故，為我僕人嘅大衛嘅緣故，我必定會保護呢個城。
And also in verse 35 it said, I will defend the city and save it for my sake and for the sake of David my servant.
第36節，
Verse
耶和華
36.
使者出去，在亞述營中殺了185000嘅軍隊，清早起嚟一看，都是死屍。
Then the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 of the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies.
以賽亞所講嘅唔係單止係空嘅安慰嘅説話，
And what Isaiah said is not just empty words,
乃係佢知道神嘅心意係點樣樣，
but because he knew the will of God.
而真係呢件事係發生咗。
And indeed it happened as he said.
第三點，
Third point,
擺喺我哋前面嘅挑戰係乜嘢咧？
the challenge before us.
我頭先開始嘅時候講到，我哋參加聚會唔係循例嚟到去習慣性咁樣嚟到。
And when we come to worship, we don't come in as of a habit, a routine.
我今日希望嚟到指出就係，我哋去敬拜神唔係只係代表我哋自己嚟敬拜。
And I want to point out to you, as we come before God to worship God, we are not only representing
喺呢
ourselves.
個疫情嘅當中咁危急嘅時間，我哋係應該了解到我哋個新嘅身份。
That in this pandemic, during this crisis, we not need to know our new position or
我哋
status.
需要一個使命感喺我哋裏面。
We need to have a sense of mission.
我哋明白我哋今日係咩嘅日子。
We need to know the times.
雖然冇打仗，冇好似呢個嘅地震，
Although that we are not in a time of war or earthquake,
但係喺呢疫情嘅封關嚟隔離嘅背景裏邊咧，我哋知道人心惶惶。
we know that during this pandemic, under this lockdown, everyone are anxiety ridden.
係唔知道疫情會變到幾壞，
They don't know how bad the situation will
好多人
become.
係擔心自己嘅有冇被感染，
Many worry about if they are being
亦
affected,
都擔心呢個其他嘅家人會唔會被感染，
and also they worry about their family members,
擔心嗰啲兒女，擔心嗰啲老人家。
and they worry about the children, worry about the elderly.
而我哋都每一日係好留心呢個政客裏邊嗰個咁嘅最新嘅報導，
And also we pay a close attention to the reports from the politicians.
然後我哋會發覺會希望知道佢哋點樣嚟控制呢啲所有嘅嘢。
And we want to know how what way are they going to do to try to control the situation.
但係發覺亦都好似唔好對路喎，
But yet we find that something is not in place.
好似呢個橋北省咧，以前係好似好控制得幾好嘅喎，突然間咧橋北係最高嘅。
And it's just as Quebec that it seemed that everything was under control, and suddenly there's an outbreak.
我哋本來好安心嘅，但係而家咧發覺咧，原來佢哋呢班咁嘅政客唔係專家嚟嘅喎。
And it seemed that we were at peace at one time, but yet we found out that these politicians are not real experts.
其實好簡單啦，我哋知道佢哋冇一個係有咁嘅經驗嚟到去管理呢個疫情。
And it's very simple because none of them have an experience to manage this pandemic.
因為未試過有咁嘅情形發生過㗎嘛。
Because this had never happened before.
今係第一次嚟去處理嘅。
It is their first time managing it.
所以有陣時咧係靠個判斷力都係靠個估嘅。
A lot of times the decisions really guesswork.
有陣時係啱。
Sometimes they were right.
但有陣時係錯。
But sometimes they are also
不過
wrong.
無論佢哋啱與錯都好。
But whether they're right or wrong,
我希望我哋唔應該責怪佢哋。
we should not blame them.
因為我哋要明白佢哋都係凡人。
We need to understand they are just
佢哋
mortals.
未有做過，所以係冇咁嘅經驗。
And they have never had this experience.
只要佢哋盡咗最大嘅人力嘅時候，
As long they did their best.
我哋需要學習嚟接受佢哋嘅限制。
We need to learn to accept the limitation.
但係因為咁嘅緣故，我哋人心咧係唔知道要點樣落去，因為我哋好似似乎而家見到係失控咗啦。
And for that reason, we don't know what to do because it seems everything is out of control.
基督徒有一啲嘢可以做。
For Christian, there's one thing that we can do.
問題唔係啲其他啲人 ，like 唔係政客裏邊出咩問題 ，like 基督徒出咗問題。
The problem it does not originate from the politician, rather from the Christians themselves.
我以前冇講到，但係我睇基督徒比政客係更加混亂。
From my observation, that the Christians are more confused than the politicians.
或者大家唔知道，因為我哋教會好太平。
Maybe you don't know because our church is very peaceful and harmonious.
但係你知唔知道咧？基督徒嘅意見咧係分歧得好緊要喺呢件事嘅裏邊。
You need to know that on this issue, the Christian their opinions is really diverse.
無論政府有乜嘢措施，
No matter what measure that the government issue,
教會基督徒裏邊都可以分裂嘅意見。
and even there's would be division inside the church.
最初開始戴唔戴口罩？
Beginning, should we wear masks or not?
基督徒分裂咗。
It split the Christians.
接唔接受政府嘅限聚令？
Should we accept that the limitation put on the gathering?
亦都有分裂。
And we also have division concerning that.
打唔打呢個疫苗？
Should we be vaccinated?
或者呢個疫苗係唔係敵基督嘅印記？
Or whether they would argue with is this the mark of the beast of the
或者
Antichrist?
啲基督徒認為政府咧係專制係極權？
Or the people we think that the government they are totalitarians and or authoritarians.
所以如果教會跟住佢政府嘅限聚令嘅時候咧，就教會都跟咗敵基督。
And if the church follow the instruction of the government, then the church is following Antichrist.
咁教會基督徒裏邊咧係出現好大嘅矛盾。
And there's a great conflict among the Christians.
任何政府裏邊嘅新嘅措施都可以導致教會分裂嘅。
And any new measure that the government issue can cause the church to split.
甚至乎喺基督徒當中有啲人出嚟咧係攻擊呢個政客。
And even some Christian would take a step forward in attacking the politicians.
你最近可能見到啦，係呢個係發生嘅。
You may have seen this before.
Burning the effigy 係將佢啲個咁嘅乜嘢個公仔咧係政客嘅公仔係吊起，係令到教會係失咗見證。
And it caused the church to lose its testimony.
所以個問題其實唔係只係外邊嘅問題，乃係基督徒嘅當中嘅問題。
So this is not just an issue in the outside world, but rather it's also an issue among the Christians.
我哋感謝神，我哋教會冇咁嘅爭戰。
We thank the Lord that we have no such a struggle inside our church.
我哋雖然要做一啲決定，但係我哋嘅執事會冇分裂過。
And even though we had to make some decisions, yet the board are not divided.
我哋大多數人都係打咗呢個疫苗。
And majority of us have received the vaccination
都係戴咗呢個口罩，
and wear the mask.
我哋都好乖好聽話，
And we're obedient.
但係唔等於我哋可以自名清高，
That doesn't mean that we can say that we're above others.
唔係等於我哋對呢個社會係冇任何責任，只係翻咗門可以有我哋嘅崇拜就可以。
And that we don't have any responsibility to this world. We just continue our worship, and that's good enough.
我哋需要知道，就係喺呢個咁動盪嘅日子當中，
That in these turbulent times,
我哋要扮演嘅係乜嘢嘅角色？
and what role should we play?
我哋需要好似呢個以賽亞嘅先知一樣，
We need to be like the prophet Isaiah.
喺最危險社會裏邊有最動盪嘅時間，係做呢個社會裏邊嘅中流砥柱，
That in this crisis and this turbulent time, we need to be the mainstay of the
係
society
穩定呢個社會，
and to stabilize the
唔
society,
係使到社會更加係動盪。
and not to cause it to be more turbulent.
我哋需要好似呢個以賽亞喺呢個就咁危急嘅日子裏邊咧，係好冷靜咁站立起嚟，
We need to be as calm as Isaiah in this time of
係
crisis,
代表神嚟對社會講說
to
話，
represent God, to speak
係
to
從
the
容不迫咁
society,
樣將呢個國家嘅危機帶到神嘅面前。
and to bring this crisis of the nation before God.
我哋要讓人知道一個同神有密切關係嘅人，同一啲冇關係嘅人嘅分別係點
We
樣。
need to let the people know the difference between a person who's intimate with God and one that who's not.
聖經裏邊講話，屬靈嘅人看透萬事，冇人能夠看透佢。First Corinthians chapter 2, spiritual men discern all things, but nobody can figure him out. I guess I'm paraphrasing. 即係話咧，有啲我哋喺屬靈裏邊睇得到嘅，係同世界嘅人係睇到係唔同。
And that means there's something that we can see spiritually that the world may not see.
我哋需要成為一個冷靜嘅人嚟到去安撫呢個社會。
We need to become a calm person that can pacify this world.
我哋知道所有所發生嘅都有神嘅命定，神有佢計劃喺裏
We
邊。
need to know that all things that happened, it is ordained by God and planned
呢個
by
世
God.
界已經係夠亂啦，
And the world is confusing enough.
我哋唔需要多啲基督徒走出好似無頭嘅雞咁樣走出嚟走嚟走去講啲唔等使嘅説話。
We don't need Christians to run around like a chicken without a head and cause more trouble.
出邊已經夠多陰謀論喺裏邊，
There's enough conspiracy theory outside.
幫唔到我哋嘅，
But all these cannot help us.
只係能夠增加動亂嘅啫。
It will cause just more trouble.
我哋需要進到神嘅殿裏邊去尋求神嘅心意，就係知道有乜嘢神係做緊嘅。
All we need to do is to come into the house of the Lord, the temple of God, and ask God what He's doing.
所以當急之務有三樣嘢，好簡單。
The urgent matter we need to do is only three urgent things we need to do.
第一就係好似以賽亞一樣，我哋好似危急嘅日子裏邊，進到神嘅殿尋求神嘅旨意，明白佢嘅旨意。
And that we need to be like Isaiah, that in time of crisis we enter into God's house to seek His will.
第二就係點樣進到神嘅殿裏邊，為世人有代求。
And that we enter the house of God and to be a representative and to
第
see.
三就係需要我哋挺身出嚟做時代嘅守望人。
And then we need to take the third thing is to take a step forward to become a watchman of this generation.
我哋要知道
We need to know
神唔係失控，
that God did not lose
政
control.
府可能係失控，但係神係冇失控到。
Maybe the government seemed to have lost control, but God did not.
神冇係束手無策。
Well, God, it isn't that God has nothing to do, cannot do anything.
呢件事完咗之後，我哋會明白更加多。
And after all this finished, we may understand more.
我哋要忍耐嚟等候呢個日子嘅結束，
We need to be patient to wait for the end of this time,
因為神係知道一切。
because God knows all things.
最後個一樣嘢就係、
The last thing,
你願唔願意踏出呢一步？
are you willing to take this step forward?
就話今趟我進到神嘅殿嘅裏邊，
That this time as I come into the temple of God,
原來唔係只係代表我自己去參加敬拜神。
that I'm not just representing myself in worshiping
係
God,
我認明到咧，原來神喺我身上都有呢個使命。
and that I know there's a mission that God has given me
我要代表我哋呢個世代去尋求神，
to represent this world, to seek after
佢知
God,
道神做緊啲乜嘢嘢，
to know what is God doing at this time,
俾啲人心裏邊能夠安定落嚟。
so the mind of the people can be at peace.
我哋唱一首歌，我哋結束。
We'll sing a song as we end.